My boss told me to get rid of the caution wet floor sign, then he fell on camera. I worked maintenance at Sterling Corporate Plaza, where my boss, Gerald Finch, cared more about aesthetics than common sense. Every morning for 6 months, I mopped the marble lobby at 7:30 and set out the yellow caution, wet floor sign near the glass entrance doors. Every morning, Gerald complained. "Makes us look cheap," he'd say, straightening his tie. "Like some discount supermarket." I ignored him because the sign stayed until the floor dried. That was the rule. That was safety protocol. That was my job done right. Then Whitmore Industries scheduled a surprise walkthrough. Gerald burst through the executive suite doors at 7:40, phone pressed to his ear, a tall woman in a gray suit trailing behind him. His eyes landed on my yellow sign like it had personally insulted his mother. "You," he snapped his fingers at me. "Move that thing, now." I kept mopping. "Floor's still wet, Mr. Finch. Give it 5 minutes." "I don't have 5 minutes." He stepped closer, lowering his voice to that tight whisper he used when he wanted to sound threatening without witnesses. "Ms. Whitmore is here for a facility tour. If she sees that cheap plastic eyesore, we lose the contract. Remove it." The woman was already checking her watch. I looked at the marble, still glossy with moisture, then at Gerald's polished dress shoes, then at the security camera mounted above the reception desk. "Sir, I think you want to keep your job." He wasn't whispering anymore. "If you did your job right, no one would need that stupid sign in the first place. Get it out of sight before she walks in." My hands tightened on the mop handle. I wanted to argue. I wanted to point at the wet streaks still visible under the overhead lights. Instead, I dragged the sign behind the reception desk and shoved it against the wall where nobody could see it. Gerald smoothed his jacket and turned toward Ms. Whitmore with his professional smile locked in place. "Shall we start with the main lobby? As you can see, we maintain immaculate standards." He gestured grandly toward the entrance, took 3 confident steps forward, and his right foot went out from under him like someone had yanked a rug. The sound was spectacular. His heel hit the wet marble with a squeak, his arms windmilled, and his coffee cup launched into the air in a perfect arc. He landed flat on his back with a wet thud that echoed through the entire lobby. The cup followed a second later, exploding across his chest and tie in a cascade of caramel macchiato and foam. Papers from his leather folder scattered everywhere. His phone skittered across the floor and crashed into the baseboard with a crack. Ms. Whitmore froze mid-step, one hand covering her mouth. I stood there holding my mop, watching Gerald stare at the ceiling with the expression of a man whose soul had just left his body and decided not to come back. He groaned, actually groaned. His perfectly gelled hair was now plastered to the wet marble, and coffee was seeping into every thread of his charcoal suit. "Mr. Finch!" Ms. Whitmore's voice was strangled, like she was trying very hard not to laugh. Gerald didn't move. He just lay there, breathing hard, his face turning the color of a fire extinguisher. The elevator doors opened, and 2 administrative assistants stepped out, saw the scene, and immediately retreated back inside. I gripped my mop tighter and waited for the yelling to start. Gerald finally moved. He rolled onto his side, pushed himself up on one elbow, and stared at the puddle of coffee soaking into his shirt like he couldn't process how he'd gotten there. Ms. Whitmore took one hesitant step back. "Should I call someone?" "I'm fine." Gerald's voice came out strangled. He got one knee under himself, then the other, palms flat on the wet marble. His tie hung forward, dripping caramel foam onto the floor in fat drops. The elevator doors opened again. Brenda from accounting stepped out, took one look at the scene, and turned around so fast her badge lanyard whipped sideways. "Help me up." Gerald extended one hand toward me without looking. I set the mop against the wall and reached for his arm. He snatched it away before I could touch him. "Not you." He jerked his chin toward Ms. Whitmore. "Her." Ms. Whitmore's professional smile had vanished. She glanced at the wet floor, then at her gray suede heels, and stayed exactly where she was. "I think you should wait for medical assistance." "I don't need medical assistance." Gerald finally made it to his feet, wobbling slightly. A dark coffee stain spread across his chest like a Rorschach test. "I need someone to explain why this floor was left in this condition." He turned toward me, and I watched his brain cycle through options in real time. Blame me for the wet floor. Blame me for not warning him. Blame me for existing. "You." He pointed one shaking finger at my chest. "You left this floor wet during business hours. You told me to move the sign. I told you to do your job properly." His voice climbed an octave. "That sign wouldn't have been necessary if you'd finished mopping before guests arrived." Ms. Whitmore cleared her throat. "Mr. Finch, perhaps we should reschedule." "No." Gerald smoothed his ruined tie with both hands like that would fix anything. "No, we're not rescheduling. This is a minor incident, a maintenance issue." The elevator dinged. This time, Randy from security stepped out, radio clipped to his belt, expression carefully neutral. He surveyed the wet floor, the scattered papers, Gerald's soaked shirt, and me standing there with my mop like a murder suspect holding the weapon. "Everything all right here?" "Fine." Gerald bent to gather his papers, winced, and straightened back up empty-handed. "Just a small spill. Looked like a fall on the cameras." Randy's eyes flicked up toward the black dome mounted above reception. "Dispatch sent me to check if anyone needed medical." "Nobody needs medical." Gerald's jaw tightened. "It was an accident. The floor was wet. My employee failed to mark the hazard properly." I opened my mouth, closed it, looked at Randy. Randy looked at the yellow sign now clearly visible behind the reception desk where I'd shoved it. "That your caution sign?" He told me to move it. The words came out flat. "Said it looked cheap." Gerald's face went from red to purple. "I said no such thing." "You said it made us look like a grocery store." I pointed at the camera. "You said it 30 seconds before you fell." Miss Whitmore's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. Randy unclipped his radio. "Yeah, I'm gonna need someone from HR down here, and maybe keep that footage queued up." Gerald took one step toward Randy and nearly slipped again. He caught himself on the reception desk, breathing hard, and for 3 seconds nobody said anything. Then Brenda's voice floated out from the elevator, where she was clearly holding the door open to eavesdrop. "Is Gerald okay?" "He's fine," Randy called back. "Just having a conversation about workplace safety." Gerald's hands curled into fists on the desktop. He stared at me like I'd personally polished the floor with cooking oil. Ms. Whitmore adjusted her purse strap. "Mr. Finch, I think I should come back another time. Perhaps after you've had a chance to address your facility protocols." "Ms. Whitmore, please." Gerald pushed off the desk, squared his shoulders, and winced again. "This is highly unusual. We have excellent safety standards. This was one employee's negligence." "The employee you ordered to remove the safety signage." Her voice stayed pleasant, but her eyes had gone cold. I heard that part clearly. The elevator doors opened again, and this time it was Donna from HR, tablet tucked under one arm, expression already tired. She She took in the scene with the practiced assessment of someone who'd seen every workplace disaster possible and was not impressed by this one. Randy called about an incident. She looked at Gerald's shirt, the coffee puddle, the scattered papers, and me. Who's hurt? No one's hurt. Gerald straightened his jacket with whatever dignity he had left. Minor slip. We're handling it internally. Donna's gaze shifted to Randy. Cameras catch it? Oh yeah. Randy almost smiled. Got audio too? Good. I'll need that footage. Donna pulled out her tablet and started typing. Mr. Finch, were you injured in the fall? I'm perfectly fine. That's not what I asked. Donna didn't look up from her screen. Did you hit your head? Injure your back? Twist anything? Gerald shifted his weight and winced again. My shoulder's a little sore. Then you need to file an incident report and see the company nurse. Donna finally looked at him. That's policy. Non-negotiable. Ms. Whitmore edged toward the door. I'll just call your office to reschedule. She was gone before Gerald could form a response. The lobby went quiet except for the hum of the overhead lights and the faint drip of coffee still falling from Gerald's tie onto the marble. Donna turned to me. You're the maintenance worker? Yes, ma'am. You put that sign behind the desk? Mr. Finch told me to move it before the client arrived. Donna's stylus stopped moving. He told you to remove the wet floor sign while the floor was still wet. Yes, ma'am. She looked at Randy. Footage confirms that? Word for word. Randy tapped his radio. Want me to send it to your email or wait till you get upstairs? Send it now. Donna turned back to Gerald. Mr. Finch, we'll need a statement from you as well, after you see the nurse. Gerald's mouth opened, closed. He looked at me one more time, and I saw the exact moment he realized he'd been caught on camera, ordering me to create the hazard that took him down. His voice came out quiet. This is absurd. This is protocol. Donna gestured toward the elevator. Nurse's office is on 3. Randy will escort you. Gerald didn't move. He just stood there dripping, staring at the wet floor like it had betrayed him personally. Randy stepped forward. Mr. Finch? Gerald finally moved, shuffling toward the elevator with his shoulders hunched and his ruined shirt clinging to his chest. He didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone. The doors closed behind them, and the lobby went silent again. Donna glanced at me. Keep mopping. Keep using the sign. I'll let you know if we need anything else. She headed for the elevator, tablet still in hand, already typing. I picked up my mop, dragged the yellow sign back to its proper position in the center of the lobby, and got back to work. The floor dried in 10 minutes. The gossip spread in 5. By lunch, the entire office knew. Brenda had texted 3 different departments before Gerald even made it to the nurse's office, and by the time I finished mopping, the break room was buzzing with speculation. I wheeled my cart past the copy room and heard Vanessa from legal whispering to someone about workers' comp fraud. In the stairwell, 2 interns stopped talking the second they saw me. On the second floor, someone had already nicknamed the incident Slipgate. I kept my head down and focused on restocking supplies. At 12:30, my supervisor Troy found me in the supply closet. He was a quiet guy, mid-50s, who usually communicated in grunts and nods. Now he stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. HR wants to see you at 1. I already talked to Donna. She wants a formal statement. Troy scratched his jaw. Just tell them what happened. Don't elaborate. Don't volunteer extra information. I'm not in trouble? Not unless you lied. He paused. You didn't lie, right? No. Then you're fine. He turned to leave, stopped, turned back. Gerald's been with the company 11 years. He's got friends upstairs, so just stick to facts. That sounded less like reassurance and more like a warning. At 1 o'clock, I sat in a gray conference room across from Donna and another HR rep I didn't recognize. The man introduced himself as Stuart, senior compliance officer, and set a digital recorder on the table between us. This is just a formality, Donna said. We're gathering statements from everyone involved in this morning's incident. Stuart pressed record. State your name for the record. I did. Walk us through what happened this morning, starting from when you began your shift. I explained the morning routine, the mopping schedule, Gerald's complaints about the sign, the surprise client visit, his direct order to remove it. Stuart took notes on a legal pad. Had Mr. Finch ever asked you to remove safety signage before? He complained about it every day. But no, he'd never told me to actually hide it. Why do you think he did this time? I hesitated. He cared more about impressing the client than following protocols. Donna and Stuart exchanged a look. Did you object when he gave the order? Stuart asked. I told him the floor was still wet. He said I'd lose my job if I didn't move it. He explicitly threatened your employment? He said, I think you want to keep your job. Stuart wrote that down. And you moved the sign. Yes. Why? The question hung there. I looked at the recorder, at their neutral faces, and tried to find the right words. Because I need this job. Because he's my boss and I thought I had to do what he said even if it was stupid. Donna's expression softened slightly. Did you warn him the floor was wet after you moved the sign? I didn't have time. He walked straight into the lobby. Stuart flipped back through his notes. Security footage shows approximately 15 seconds between when you moved the sign and when Mr. Finch entered the lobby. That's accurate? Yes. Could you have replaced the sign in that time? I stared at him. He told me to move it. If I'd put it back, he would have... Hypothetically, Stuart interrupted. Could you have physically replaced the sign before he entered? I guess, but yes or no? Yes. He wrote that down too, and something cold settled in my stomach. Donna leaned forward. Did Mr. Finch see the wet floor before he stepped onto it? The lights were on. It was shiny. He should have noticed. That's not what I asked. Her voice stayed level. Did he see the wet floor? I don't know what he saw. Stuart tapped his pen against the pad. Would you say the wet floor was obvious to a reasonable person? The whole lobby was wet. I'd been mopping for 10 minutes. But without the sign, would someone know it was recently mopped and still hazardous? I gripped the edge of my chair. That's why we used the sign. Answer the question, Stuart said. The marble gets slippery when wet. It wasn't obvious unless you looked. Stuart nodded like I just confirmed something. Mr. Finch claims you mopped the floor during a high traffic period, which violates protocol. Is that accurate? I mop at the same time every morning. It's on the schedule. The schedule says 7 to 7:30. The incident occurred at 7:40 because Ms. Whitmore arrived early and Gerald wanted the floor perfect. So you were still mopping after your scheduled window. It wasn't a question. By 10 minutes because he kept asking me to redo sections. Donna typed something on her tablet. Did Mr. Finch specifically ask you to extend your mopping time this morning? He saw me mopping. He didn't tell me to stop. That's not a yes. No, he didn't specifically ask me to keep going. Stuart made another note. To clarify, you were mopping outside your scheduled time, The floor was still wet during business hours, and you removed the only safety warning at Mr. Finch's request. Is that a fair summary? He ordered me to remove it, I said. That's different than a request. Did you document this order in any way? Email, text, witness? It happened 30 seconds before he fell. There wasn't time to document anything, so your only evidence is the security footage. The footage has audio. You can hear him. We have footage of Mr. Finch speaking to you, Stewart said. We have footage of you removing the sign. We have footage of him falling. But you understand how this could be interpreted differently depending on context. There's no different context. He told me to move it, so I moved it. Donna set down her tablet. Here's the issue. Mr. Finch claims he asked you to move the sign temporarily so Ms. Whitmore wouldn't trip over it on her way in. He says he expected you to replace it immediately after she passed, which you failed to do. That's not what happened. Can you prove it? The audio shows him asking you to move the sign. It doesn't show the full conversation or his intent. Stewart closed his notepad. From a liability standpoint, this becomes a he said, she said situation. He fell because he ordered me to create a hazard. He fell because the floor was wet and unmarked, Stewart corrected. Whether that was due to your negligence or his poor judgment is still under investigation. Donna stood. You're not being disciplined at this time. We'll review the footage and all statements before making any determinations. In the meantime, continue your normal duties and make sure all safety protocols are followed exactly. I always follow protocols. Then you have nothing to worry about. Her tone said I had plenty to worry about. They escorted me out. I walked back to the supply closet in a daze, Troy's warning echoing in my head. Gerald had friends upstairs. I'd told the truth. I'd done exactly what I was supposed to do, and somehow I was the one being investigated. Gerald came back to work the next morning wearing a sling. The shoulder injury was apparently severe enough to require modified duty, which meant he spent the entire day circulating through the office, telling his version of events to anyone who'd listen. By 9 a.m., half the building had heard about the hazardous conditions I'd created. By 10, someone had started a rumor that I'd deliberately left the floor wet. I found out during my break when Brenda cornered me by the vending machines. People are saying you have it out for Gerald, she said, feeding coins into the slot. That you've been trying to get him in trouble for months. That's not true. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. She grabbed her Diet Coke and lowered her voice. Vanessa told me Gerald's talking to a lawyer about filing a personal injury claim. He's saying the fall aggravated an old rotator cuff injury, and he might need surgery. He ordered me to move the sign. I know. I saw the whole thing. She glanced around, then leaned closer. But Gerald's been here forever. He knows people. And you're, what? Replaceable. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying that's how it works here. She walked away before I could respond. At lunch, I ate in my car because the break room went silent when I walked in. 3 people found excuses to leave within 30 seconds. The 2 who stayed wouldn't make eye contact. Troy found me in the parking lot afterward. You got a minute? We sat on the curb near the loading dock while he chain-smoked and stared at the pavement. Gerald went to upper management this morning, he said finally. Told them you've been insubordinate for months. Said you deliberately ignored his instructions about lobby maintenance. That's the opposite of what happened. I know. Troy flicked ash onto the asphalt. Problem is, Gerald's got documentation. Emails about the sign. Performance reviews mentioning your resistance to feedback. He's been building a case. A case for what? For why you should have known better than to follow an unsafe order. Troy took another drag. He's saying any competent maintenance worker would have refused to remove that sign, and the fact that you did it proves you're either incompetent or malicious. So I get punished for doing what he told me to do? Welcome to corporate politics. Troy ground out his cigarette. HR is going to review your entire employment history. Every write-up, every complaint, every time you clocked in late. They're looking for a pattern. There is no pattern. I do my job. Then you'll be fine. He stood, brushed off his pants, and headed back inside without another word. That afternoon, Stewart from compliance showed up at the supply closet with a clipboard. Routine inspection, he said, scanning the shelves, making sure all safety equipment is properly maintained and stored according to code. He checked every label, every expiration date, every cord for fraying. He photographed the chemical storage cabinet from 3 angles. He made notes about the fire extinguisher placement and questioned why I had 2 mop buckets instead of 1. Just being thorough, he said when he caught me watching. Mr. Finch raised some concerns about general safety compliance in the maintenance department. We want to make sure everything's up to standard. He found 6 minor violations. Things that had been wrong for months, things nobody had ever cared about before. A spray bottle with a faded label, a step stool stored an inch too close to the electrical panel, a box of trash bags blocking partial access to the emergency eye wash station. I'll need to file a report, Stewart said, clicking his pen. These violations suggest a pattern of neglecting basic safety protocols. Those have been like that since before I started. Then you should have reported them. He handed me a printed form. You have 48 hours to correct these issues and provide photographic evidence of compliance. Failure to do so will result in a formal write-up. After he left, I sat on an overturned bucket and stared at the form. 6 violations. 6 pieces of evidence that I didn't take safety seriously. 6 reasons why maybe Gerald was right to question my judgment. The next morning, someone had taped a printout to the break room bulletin board. It was an article about workplace injury lawsuits and how much they cost companies in settlements. Someone had highlighted a section about employees who deliberately create hazardous conditions. I tore it down. By lunchtime, 3 more copies had appeared in different locations. Randy pulled me aside near the elevators. Security reviewed all the footage from that morning, not just the lobby. And Gerald's story checks out on everything except the sign. Randy kept his voice low. He was reviewing the client presentation in his office. He got the call that Ms. Whitmore was arriving early. He rushed down to meet her. Everything he did looks like normal professional behavior, except ordering me to remove the sign. Here's the thing. Randy shifted his weight. The audio on that part is unclear. You can hear him talking, but his exact words are hard to make out. Gerald's claiming he said something different than what you heard. The audio worked fine when Donna and Stewart reviewed it. Yeah, but now there's questions about interpretation. Was he ordering you to remove it permanently, or just move it out of the walkway temporarily? Did he expect you to put it back immediately, or did he mean for you to wait until the floor dried? Randy shrugged. Without crystal clear audio, it becomes one person's word against another's, so he gets away with it. I didn't say that. Randy glanced around, making sure we were alone. I'm saying the case isn't as clear-cut as everyone thought, and Gerald knows it. That afternoon, I got called back to HR. Donna sat across from me with Stewart and a woman I didn't recognize. The woman introduced herself as says Patricia, Director of Risk Management. We've completed our initial investigation, Patricia said, opening a folder thick with documents. The incident raises several concerning issues about safety compliance and workplace protocols. I followed protocols, Gerald didn't. According to our review, you both failed to follow proper procedures. Patricia pulled out a highlighted document. You were mopping outside your scheduled maintenance window, which increased foot traffic risk. You removed safety signage when ordered, rather than refusing and reporting the unsafe request to your supervisor. And you failed to verbally warn Mr. Finch about the hazardous condition after removing the sign. I didn't have time. Section 4 of the Employee Handbook states that any employee who becomes aware of a safety hazard must immediately alert all persons in the area, regardless of circumstances. She tapped the page. You failed to do that because I was following his order. Following an unsafe order doesn't absolve you of your responsibility to maintain a safe workplace, Stewart added. You had options. You chose not to exercise them. Donna leaned forward. We're not saying you're entirely at fault, but this isn't the clear-cut situation we initially thought. Patricia closed the folder. Mr. Finch will be required to complete safety training and will receive a formal warning for pressuring you to remove the signage. However, you'll also receive a written warning for failing to refuse an unsafe order and for inadequate hazard communication. This is ridiculous. This is fair, Patricia said. Both parties made mistakes. Both parties will be held accountable. They handed me the write-up. I signed it because I didn't have a choice. The write-up went into my permanent file on Thursday. By Friday, Gerald was back to his normal routine, sling and all, acting like nothing had happened. I spent the weekend replaying every conversation, every detail, wondering if I'd actually done something wrong. Maybe I should have refused his order. Maybe I should have shouted a warning. Maybe everyone was right and I just didn't see it. Monday morning, I arrived early to mop the lobby. The yellow sign went out front and center, exactly where it was supposed to be. I checked it twice to make sure nobody could claim it was in the wrong spot. Gerald walked past at 7:40, coffee in his good hand, and didn't say a word. At 8:15, Brenda caught me in the hallway. Did you hear about Vanessa? What about her? She quit. Gave notice this morning. Said she's taking a position somewhere else. Brenda glanced around and lowered her voice. But she told me the real reason. She's tired of watching Gerald throw people under the bus and get away with it. She saw what happened? She saw everything. The whole fall, the order to move the sign, all of it. Brenda shifted her weight. She wanted to say something during the investigation, but HR never called her. And when she tried to volunteer a statement, Stewart told her they already had all the witness testimony they needed. Why didn't she push harder? Because she's been here 5 years and she knows how this works. Brenda pulled out her phone. But she sent me something before she left. Said you might need it. She turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of an email chain dated 3 months back. Gerald to upper management complaining about maintenance costs, suggesting they could save money by reducing unnecessary safety signage and equipment, arguing that modern marble sealant made wet floor signs redundant and unprofessional looking. He's been trying to get rid of those signs for months, Brenda said. It wasn't just about that one morning. He's been building a case to eliminate them completely. Can you send that to me? Vanessa already sent it to herself on her personal email. She said if you need it, she'll forward it to you. Just ask. Brenda left, and I stood there staring at my phone, processing what I'd just learned. At lunch, Randy found me in the loading dock again. Something's off about the footage review, he said without preamble. I pulled the original files to double-check something, and the audio on the lobby camera is crystal clear. But the copy that went to HR has some weird distortion right around the timestamp where Gerald gives the order. Someone tampered with it? Not tampered. More like exported badly. Randy pulled out his phone and played a clip. Gerald's voice came through perfectly. Get rid of that stupid sign. If you did your job right, no one would need it. Then he played a second clip. Same footage, but the audio was muffled, words running together. It could have been, get rid of that stupid sign, or get that sign out of the way, or a dozen other variations. That's the version HR reviewed, Randy said. Stewart pulled it from the server himself, but I don't understand why it degraded like that. We use the same export settings for everything. Can you show them the original? I already tried. Stewart said the version on file is the official record, and any other copies are irrelevant. Randy pocketed his phone. But I kept the original anyway, just in case. That afternoon, Troy called me into his office and closed the door. I got a call from Patricia in risk management, he said. They're reviewing the entire incident again. New evidence came to light. What kind of evidence? Someone sent HR a screenshot of an old email chain. Something about Gerald trying to eliminate safety signage to cut costs. Troy leaned back in his chair. Patricia wants to know if you were aware of any pressure from management to reduce safety equipment visibility. I just mopped the floors and put out the signs. Nobody told me anything about cost cutting. That's what I figured. Troy drummed his fingers on the desk. Here's the thing. If Gerald was actively trying to eliminate those signs before the incident, it changes the context of what happened that morning. Makes it look less like a one-time mistake and more like part of a pattern. So what happens now? Patricia's reopening the investigation. She wants to interview everyone who was in the lobby that morning. Troy met my eyes. And she specifically wants to talk to Vanessa, but Vanessa already left. Vanessa saw the whole thing. I know. And according to the original investigation notes, she was never interviewed. Troy opened a file on his computer and turned the monitor toward me. Stewart's report says he got statements from everyone present, but Vanessa's name isn't on the witness list. Why would he leave her out? Good question. Troy closed the file. Patricia's asking the same thing. Wednesday morning, I got called to HR again. This time it was just Patricia and Donna. No Stewart. Patricia set a folder on the table between us. We've reviewed the security footage again, multiple times, and we've identified some inconsistencies in the original investigation. Like what? Like the audio quality on the copy provided to our initial review team being significantly degraded compared to the master file on the security server. Patricia opened the folder and pulled out a printed transcript. The original audio clearly captures Mr. Finch ordering you to remove the sign permanently, not temporarily. That's what I've been saying. We know, and we apologize for not catching this sooner. Donna slid a second document across the table. We also received documentation showing that Mr. Finch had been advocating for the removal of certain safety signage for several months prior to the incident. This information was not disclosed during the initial investigation. He tried to bury it. We're not making accusations at this time, Patricia said carefully, but we are are concerned about the integrity of the investigation process. We've also discovered that a key witness, Vanessa Ortiz, was present during the incident but was never interviewed. Stewart told her he had enough witnesses. Patricia's expression hardened. Did Ms. Ortiz tell you that directly? Brenda did. Vanessa told her. We'll need to speak with both of them. Patricia made a note. In the meantime, we're putting the previous findings on hold pending a complete reinvestigation. Your written warning will be suspended until we conclude our review. And Gerald's? Mr. Finch's disciplinary status is also under review. Patricia closed the folder. We take investigation integrity very seriously. If there was any attempt to influence the outcome, there will be consequences. After they dismissed me, I walked back to the supply closet in a daze. The ground that had felt so unstable for the past week suddenly felt solid again. Troy was waiting by the elevator. He didn't say anything, just gave me a single nod. I nodded back and kept walking. Patricia scheduled a full review meeting for Friday at 2 p.m. Everyone involved was required to attend. Me, Gerald, Troy, Donna, Randy, and Stewart. Vanessa agreed to call in remotely since she'd already left the company. Brenda would be there as a witness. The conference room felt too small for the tension packed inside it. Gerald sat at one end of the table, sling still on, jaw tight. Stewart sat beside him, tablet open, expression carefully neutral. I sat at the opposite end between Troy and Randy, everyone's folders and phones laid out like we were preparing for trial. Patricia entered last, carrying 3 thick binders and a laptop. She connected the laptop to the projector and pulled up the security footage without any preamble. We're here to address inconsistencies in the original investigation of the workplace incident that occurred on the morning of October 1st. She clicked to the next slide, showing a split screen of 2 audio waveforms. On the left is the master file from the security server. On the right is the copy provided to HR during the initial review. You'll notice significant degradation in the second file. Stewart shifted in his seat. Audio compression during export can cause... We use automated export protocols, Randy interrupted. Same settings for every file. I've exported hundreds of clips. None of them degraded like this one. Patricia played both clips. The difference was undeniable. The master file captured Gerald's words perfectly. The degraded version turned them into mush. Mr. Lancaster, Patricia said, using Stewart's last name like a weapon. Can you explain why the degraded version was provided to the investigation team instead of the master file? I pulled the file using standard procedures. The standard procedure requires exporting directly from the security server using preset parameters. You instead exported from a backup file that had already been compressed once. Patricia pulled up a log screen. The metadata shows you accessed a backup copy approximately 30 minutes before providing it to HR. Stewart's face went pale. I must have clicked the wrong file. You accessed the backup file 3 times before settling on the version you submitted. Patricia highlighted 3 separate entries. That suggests intentional selection, not an accident. I was being thorough. You were being selective. Patricia closed the log and opened a new document. We also have the issue of missing witness testimony. Vanessa Ortiz was present during the entire incident, yet no statement was taken from her. Stewart flipped through his tablet. I interviewed all available witnesses. Ms. Ortiz approached you directly and offered to provide a statement. You told her it wasn't necessary. Patricia glanced toward the conference phone in the center of the table. Ms. Ortiz, are you on the line? I'm here. Vanessa's voice came through the speaker, clear and steady. Please describe your interaction with Mr. Lancaster during the initial investigation. Vanessa didn't hesitate. I was at my desk when the incident happened. I saw and heard everything. The morning after, I went to Stewart's office and told him I could provide a witness statement. He said he already had sufficient testimony, and that adding more witnesses would complicate the report unnecessarily. Did he explain what he meant by complicate? No, but when I pressed him, he said that my perspective might contradict other accounts and create confusion. He suggested it would be better to keep the investigation straightforward. Stewart's hand tightened on his tablet. That's a mischaracterization. Is it? Patricia pulled up an email. This is a message you sent to Gerald Finch on October 2nd, the day after the incident. Subject line, investigation update. Would you like me to read it aloud? The room went dead silent. The relevant portion says, and I quote, working to keep the scope limited. One witness is causing issues, but I'm handling it. We'll have the report finalized by end of week. End quote. Patricia looked directly at Stewart. Who was the witness causing issues? Stewart's mouth opened, closed. He looked at Gerald, then at Patricia, then down at his tablet. Ms. Ortiz, Patricia continued, in your observation, did the employee remove the caution sign before or after Mr. Finch gave an explicit order to do so? After. Gerald told him to move it because it looked unprofessional. I heard him say the exact words, get rid of that stupid sign. If you did your job right, no one would need it. Gerald's hand slammed on the table. That's not what I said. Yes, it is. Vanessa's voice stayed calm. I was 15 feet away. The lobby has good acoustics. I heard every word. You're misremembering. I'm not. Vanessa paused. And I have the email chain you sent to upper management last June arguing that we should eliminate wet floor signage to improve the building's professional appearance. Would you like me to forward that to Patricia? Gerald's face went from red to white. Patricia already had the email up on screen. For the record, Mr. Finch sent multiple messages over a 3-month period advocating for the removal of what he termed excessive and unsightly safety equipment. He argued that modern flooring materials made such signage unnecessary. That was a cost savings proposal, Gerald said tightly. It had nothing to do with, it establishes a pattern of behavior. Patricia clicked to the next slide. It shows that your order to remove the sign that morning wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a sustained effort to eliminate safety protocols you deemed inconvenient. Brenda raised her hand slightly. I have something to add. Patricia nodded. Gerald's been complaining about that yellow sign since I started working here 3 years ago. He's mentioned it in at least a dozen meetings. Said it made clients think we had maintenance problems. Brenda glanced at Gerald. Last month, he asked me if there was any way to get translucent signage that would be less visible. I told him all safety signage has to meet visibility requirements. Did he pursue the matter further? He asked me to research alternative options. I sent him specifications showing that any compliant signage would be equally visible. He wasn't happy about it. Patricia made a note. Mr. Finch, do you dispute any of this? Gerald's jaw worked. He looked at Stewart, who was staring at his tablet like it might provide an escape route. Then he looked at me, and I saw the exact moment he realized there was no way out. I made a judgment call, he said finally. The client was arriving early. The sign was positioned poorly. I asked for it to be moved temporarily. The audio says get rid of it, not move it temporarily. That's semantics. No, Patricia said. That's evidence. evidence, and you instructed Mr. Lancaster to obscure that evidence by providing degraded audio to the investigation team. I did no such thing. Patricia turned to Stewart. Did Mr. Finch contact you before you submitted the audio file to HR? Stewart didn't answer. Mr. Lancaster, you're required to respond. He called me, Stewart said quietly, the night after the incident. Said he wanted to make sure the investigation was handled properly. What did handled properly mean? He was concerned about potential liability. Asked if there was any way to present the facts in a way that wouldn't make the company look negligent. Did he specifically ask you to alter evidence? He asked if the audio was clear enough to determine intent. I told him it was somewhat ambiguous. He suggested that ambiguity might be preferable to certainty in this case. Patricia closed her laptop. Mr. Lancaster, you're suspended pending a full ethics review. Your access to company systems is revoked effective immediately. Stewart stood, gathered his tablet, and left without another word. Gerald pushed his chair back. This is absurd. I'm being railroaded because of one employee's incompetence. Mr. Finch! Patricia's voice cut through his protest like glass. You ordered an employee to violate safety protocols. When that decision resulted in your own injury, you attempted to blame the employee. When the evidence didn't support your version of events, you enlisted a compliance officer to obscure that evidence. You misled HR during the initial investigation, excluded witnesses whose testimony contradicted your account, and used your position to intimidate the employee you endangered. I want to speak with my attorney. That's your right, but for the record, you're being placed on immediate administrative leave pending termination proceedings. Patricia pulled out a prepared document. Your access to the building is suspended. You'll receive details about the termination hearing by email. Gerald stood slowly, sling hanging limp, face drained of color. He looked at me one last time, started to say something, then thought better of it. He walked out of the conference room with whatever dignity he had left, which wasn't much. The door clicked shut behind him, and the room exhaled collectively. Patricia turned to me. Your written warning is being removed from your file. You'll receive a formal letter of apology from the company, and we're implementing new investigation protocols to prevent this kind of misconduct going forward. What about Stewart? He'll be terminated. Investigation tampering is grounds for immediate dismissal. Patricia gathered her binders. If you have any concerns about retaliation or workplace environment going forward, my door is open. After everyone filed out, Troy and I stood in the empty conference room. Hell of a week, he said finally. Yeah, for what it's worth, you did the right thing. Stuck to the truth even when it got ugly. Didn't feel like it at the time. It never does. Troy headed for the door, paused, looked back. That yellow sign stays out every morning. Non-negotiable. New policy. Understood. He left, and I stood there alone, staring at the blank projector screen where the evidence had played out like a movie. Monday morning, a new laminated sign appeared on the break room bulletin board. Official company letterhead, bold print. All caution and safety signage must remain visible during maintenance operations. No exceptions. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action. Someone had taped a printed screenshot beneath it. Gerald, mid-fall, arms windmilling, coffee cup frozen in mid-air, eyes wide with the kind of surprise that comes right before gravity reminds you who's in charge. No caption needed. I mopped the lobby at 7:30 like always. The yellow caution, wet floor sign went out front and center exactly where it belonged. Bold, bright, unmissable. Brenda walked past with her morning coffee and gave me a thumbs up. Randy nodded from the security desk. Troy didn't say anything, but he stood by the elevator watching until the floor dried, arms crossed, making sure everyone saw the sign and walked around it properly. The marble gleamed under the overhead lights, polished to mirror brightness, safer now than it had been in months. I put away my mop and bucket, checked my watch, and started my next round. The yellow sign stayed exactly where it was, right in the middle of the lobby doing its job, just like me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.